Wow, that was a really clean intro there, folks. It's Thursday. I'm Fred McMurray. It's 2 p.m. Pacific, which means this has to be. Ladies, you ready for another show? Kristin, you're muted.
I just did an Elizabeth.
It's
Yeah.
Friday Eve. Yes, it's Friday Eve. Thank
Did
you.
an Elizabeth. Very
You
bad.
pulled an
Very
Elizabeth.
bad.
I don't know if that's the reputation I really want, but I guess it is what it is.
It is. It is. Welcome to Pillars of Franchising, everybody. It is Friday Eve, and we are live here with a great guest today. But first, of course, we begin each show with a word on the street.
We're on the street, and I have some exciting news that I haven't even told you yet.
Wait, what? Seriously?
Yeah. This guy that we're about to talk about has agreed to come on the show.
You got him?
I got him. I haven't got a date pinned down yet, but he's willing to come on. So let's tell everybody who he is. His name is Shan Sharif. He's with Yum. He came over from Pakistan in the 80s, started at low-level KFC, working, a hourly rate job, and has persisted over the years with franchising, took a little bit of a segue into insurance, but now has one of each brand in the Yum system. He's got the Taco Bell, the KFC, the Pizza Hut, and the Habit Burger, and is doing really, really well, and has developed this love of franchising and leadership. So I'm really excited to talk to him about just exactly how you come in as an 18-year-old immigrant and work your way through this. He loves the Yum brand franchise models.
I have to tell you, when I read his story, I sent this to you a couple weeks ago when I first saw it, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a great story. A true coming to America story, right? Mm-hmm. And especially over the last couple of years, there's been all this kind of, negativity and stuff. So these kinds of stories really move me. And not only just the fact that he came here and made such a great life for himself and his family, but he had some really great things to say about franchising in general. And one of the questions, this actually came from Franchise 500, actually, by Entrepreneur. And one of the questions they said is, what can franchisees do to uphold franchisor loyalty? And it was so simple, right? Just do what they ask you to do, right? And we talk about that on the show all the time, about just follow the system. It's not hard from a complication standpoint. Is it hard work? Yes. Do you have to do your part? Yes. But it's very interesting. And when they said, what piece of advice would you offer to new franchisees? He's like, don't screw anybody over, right? Just be authentic, be true to the brand, do your best, right? And it's so simple. If you owe your employees $50, give them $55. It's not the end of the world, right? Such a down to earth, pay it forward.
He hasn't forgotten his roots.
No, not at all.
As in his mind, when he says, if you owe him 50, give him 55, he said, to you, that's $5. To them, it's a meal. So having kept that in mind, I think makes him an even better leader. And talking about brand loyalty, he said, when you make a mistake, you might lose a customer or two, but if you do something atrocious, it reflects the whole brand. You're the KFC guy who did this horrible thing. So he's very cognizant of his individual impact, but also his impact on a system.
Yeah. And, I'm afraid of food because it's not what I know, right? And everybody always says, if you've not worked in food before, that's not where you want to make your first move in franchising is food. And so when I read this and the things he said about it, I'm like, wow, he really was inspiring for me. He said, why have you stuck with the same franchisor all these years? And he says, it's just so simple to me, right? Like, if you have something good, why rock the boat? I know the brand. I can open a location and not be worried about how their operation's going to run. I feel that if I were to go to another brand, I'd be downgrading myself.
Mhm.
All the franchise coaches we have are really nice people. I'm a 5-star operator, but I've got 40, or I'm sorry, a 5-store operator, but I have 40 people working behind me. This is exactly what we talk about. We talk about this is the beauty of being in a franchise system with a strong franchisor, with all the team behind you. They're not in your business every day, but they're there as a backup if you need them. You set the culture for your businesses, but they're there if you need something in the background. And
Well,
one of the
and
other
not
things,
only, go ahead. Go ahead.
okay. And this is really important to me because this is the one thing when I talked last week with Vetted Biz about Molly Maid, we talked a little bit about how these brands helped the franchisees in COVID, right? And again, so I read this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost want to buy a restaurant. And then I go, no, I don't, no, I don't. What has Yum Brands done? I'm sorry, how has Yum Brands been there for you as a franchisee? And he said they've always been coming up with new stuff, which helps us bring in more customers. And then there's the support you get. For instance, when COVID started right away, KFC and Taco Bell emailed all the franchisees saying you can postpone your royalty sale for 60 days or 90 days. Don't worry about it. Run your restaurant and do whatever you can. Who does that?
Yeah. And then he talked about by the brand doing that, it now allowed him to pay it forward to his employees and have a little more flexibility, try to work with them a little bit more as people were off for being sick or off for childcare or whatever it was. So when you have a solid brand like that, that pay it forward mentality is really critical to the success of the whole entire system.
And that's exactly what he did, Elizabeth, when they were closed. And now, okay, so this is also part of if you follow the program with PPP, they were closed and they still paid their employees. I mean, and so we talk a lot about culture, right? That's what he's doing, is building the culture. And I really hope for him that he didn't lose any of his employees, because he did the right thing with the circumstances and all. He did the best he could with what he had at the time. So hats off to him. I cannot wait to have him on the show. So I'm really super excited. I'm glad you were able to get a hold of him. So Sean, Sharif, we are excited. I am super excited to talk to you soon. Hats off to you.
Yep.
And Yum Brands.
We will pin it down in the next couple of days, hopefully. So,
awesome.
He's going to be a great story.
Yay.
Just like our guest today.
Another food, right? Okay, so this one made me get hungry. It did. Shannon Swenson. I was reading about this and I was like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And then I realized I didn't eat lunch.
Well, that's not good.
Yeah.
Well, you need to go on our Instagram page. It's very craveable.
Well, not only that, but I just even went to the home site and I realized that there are several restaurants here in my area. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to go check this place out.
Well, wonderful. Where are you located?
I'm in Chicago.
Okay. Yeah. I think we have either 2 or 3 locations, and we have 2 very strong franchise groups that are growing throughout that area.
That's awesome. Yep. I saw you got one in the city and you've got one in Naperville, and I forget the second location. I think it's near the city. So, but first let's talk about you, Elizabeth. You want to talk about Sharon, and then Shannon, and then I can't wait to talk about the brand.
Yeah. Yes, let's do a little intro so people have a little background understanding from what Shannon is doing. She is the Vice President of Franchise Development at Dave's Hot Chicken, a Nashville hot chicken concept based in Los Angeles. She's held this role since October of 2019, and under her leadership, they have signed over 50 operators and over 600 committed units, including a development in Canada and the Middle East. She has more than 18 years of experience in franchise development, has worked for the brands such as Image for Kids, Twin Peaks Restaurants, and Salsarita's Fresh Mexican Grill, where she has supported both corporate and franchise growth. She has an MBA in marketing and marketing management and global business from the University of Dallas. So that gives you a bit of a background, but I am really excited to find out how she did all this. And these 600 commitments were over the last 2 years. So during a pandemic, I think this is going to be really exciting to understand exactly how you were able to keep all those moving parts going under duress.
Yeah, I mean, they say everything is bigger in Texas, but I mean, 600 units during COVID is like outrageously large. Tell us about that. I mean, how do you do that? Irrespective of what the brand is, how do you move forward in these circumstances like that at that pace?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched our franchising in October of 2019. I had come on board with Dave's Hot Chicken, and when I joined the concept, they only had one restaurant open. Which a lot of times, when they were first recruiting me for the concept, I thought, the one restaurant, they're not ready for franchising. But I flew out to LA, met the team, realized a lot of the team was the team that had been behind the launch of Blaze Pizza, which was a very fast growing concept as well. So I realized there was a really strong leadership and it was a great product. So I ended up joining them in October of 2019. We did our first PR release right about that time. And the leads started coming in, fairly quickly, had high level interest in the brand. But as we know, our world changed a few months after that. I mean, it was in December of that year that the COVID cases started being reported. And then it was, February, March, the following year that the shutdowns happened. So certainly for most franchise brands, that's a scary time. And as everybody knows, the restaurant industry in particular got hit very hard during this time. And at that time as well, the majority of our restaurants were in LA, and California completely shut down. Yeah. So we were looking at it from both fronts. First our restaurant shut down, so we had to figure out how we could pivot very quickly through that. And we got online ordering in place within a week. Focused heavily on third-party delivery, and instead of our sales going down, our sales soared. We went up 20% in sales within a month's time after COVID shutdowns. We also had very, very strong volume, so that helped. But certainly, we were very surprised that the brand did so well during COVID. Also, I very quickly pivoted, so I realized that I couldn't keep franchising going unless we could engage with candidates. And our process before had been we'd invite candidates to LA for an in-person discovery day, and they'd meet the team and we'd tour the restaurant. We had a whole approach to how we introduced candidates to the concept. And so within a week, I pivoted. And in my previous life, I had never used Zoom for my franchise sales process. And, so I thought, okay, how can I make sure that we're still engaging with candidates? We're introducing them to the concept, introducing them to leadership, and keeping things going forward. So we shifted our discovery day process to Zoom discovery calls. So what we do is when I engage with a candidate, if they're qualified, I get them on a call with all of our leadership and we take them through a presentation. So instead of an in-person discovery day, we're now doing an in-person Zoom discovery call. Once they qualify after that call, we then have them put together a business plan, and they actually present their business plan back to us via Zoom. And so what we found during this time, kind of out of necessity because of COVID shutdowns, is that we got very efficient with our process. So we were able to engage with candidates faster. We were able, instead of them having to buy a plane ticket, get out to meet us, to get engaged with our team, we were able to do that all through Zoom. We were able to, be very efficient about our business plan review process and everything else. And so instead of a lot of, slowing down in franchising, which would have happened to most concepts, instead ours just took off. So we signed all 600 of those commitments in the last 2 years throughout COVID, from basically January of 2020 till now. It's been my biggest couple of years of my career in 18 years has been awesome. During this time, which was a very tough time for the restaurant industry as a whole.
So Shannon, I'm curious about getting these commitments launched. How many stores have you opened, and what challenges are you facing because of supply chain issues or hiring issues and that kind of thing with these franchisees who are starting in kind of a pit economically as a country, and with the COVID and the unknowns? How are you helping them navigate through that process? Because I think it's a challenging time for anybody to start a business, but with strong leadership behind them, what are you able to do to help them through that?
Yes, absolutely. So at the beginning of last year, 2021, we had 7 locations open. We ended the year with 40 locations open, and we're on track this year to open 80 locations. So we're scaling up very, very quickly. One thing is we were very committed to, we only bring on very high level multi-unit restaurant operators. So we don't bring on any startups. We're not training people in the restaurant industry. We're bringing on very experienced restaurant operators. So that's really helped during this time. But when COVID very first started, we had one of our restaurants open in San Diego that opened as a restaurant that was during the shutdown. So they opened with only third-party delivery and takeout, which that was very interesting. That was a first for everybody to basically open a restaurant during a shutdown. And again, they opened with phenomenal sales, as third-party delivery and takeout only. Another challenge we had is we were opening in Canada during the shutdowns. Canada was actually shut down to where we could not get training teams into Canada during their opening. So as another first, we did training all via Zoom. And now that's not an ideal situation, and we won't stick with that process, but it was what we had to do to get the restaurant open. And again, they opened up with phenomenal sales and lines out the door and executed operationally very well. So it was really a test to our entire team of how to get creative about very challenging times during the restaurant industry. Obviously, as we all know, during shutdowns and heightened unemployment, the restaurant industry was also hit very hard of labor shortages. Fortunately for us, we did pay, I think we paid $3 extra an hour for kind of like hazard pay, for people working during COVID. That helped. And also the fact that we're just kind of a cool brand. People do want to work for our concept. So we have been surprised that, we are normally able to staff up. We certainly are finding a lot of challenges in supply chain, equipment, fryers that used to take 6 weeks to get, now take 6 months to get. Yeah. So we're preparing our vendors in advance for our growth because we have such substantial growth. We need even more. So we're preparing our vendors for that. And a lot of our franchisees that, know that they have multiple restaurants opening up, they're getting storage buildings and buying equipment way in advance because you need to be prepared for that. So it's just, you just kind of have to stay on top of all of these issues during these trying times. We also are having issues with, a lot of our logoed packaging, our logoed cups and logo to-go packaging and stuff is obviously stuck out in ships coming from China. And so, those are just some things we kind of have to do without right now.
Wow. It's interesting when I read the story about Dave's Hot Chicken and the 4 friends who started this whole thing. And, I could say all of their first names, but I couldn't figure out how to pronounce not one. Well, okay, Keller, I could say his last name, but the other 3, I'm like, oh yeah, I couldn't say their last names. But I find it really interesting.
And Agnesian.
Yeah, I could not get there. Hi, Mickey. I see Mickey in the background. But $900 to build this little place to get it going. And I love how after being open, they throw it out on Instagram, right? And 2 nights later, after Eater LA shows up, the place is booming crazy with lines around the building.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about
true rags to riches, American dream kind of story, without a doubt.
Yeah. And so when you're talking about pivoting and you guys doing 600 stores and, during COVID, I'm like, well, that's just very much like this, throw it out on Instagram and here they all come. I mean, it's really amazing. They've really got a great story to tell. I can't wait to check it out. And it shows here you guys have everything from mild to Reaper, and the website it truly did make my mouth water. So where do you see the brand going in the next 12 to 24 months? What are the goals? What are the markets you're looking to hit?
Well, so, we're truly growing coast to coast at this point. Obviously the brand started in LA. So originally most of our locations opened throughout California. Then we expanded to Portland, to Denver, then jumped up to Chicago. We now have locations open in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston. But I recently started selling very heavy on the East Coast. So last week just sold 2 territories in New York for upstate New York, as well as Manhattan and Brooklyn. We are growing throughout Florida. So really, we're just coast to coast. And early on, we were approached by a big developer in Canada. So we were, obviously growing in Canada. And then 2 weeks ago, we just signed a 50-store commitment for the Middle East. So we should be opening in the Middle East by the end of the year. So really, Dave's Hot Chicken is going to be worldwide within the next 12 to 18 months.
Wow, it is hot. So,
Yes.
It is
So-
on
It
fire.
definitely is hot.
yeah, it is definitely hot. It is reefer hot, according to this. So,
It
so
is.
my question is, we always ask franchisors, tell us a little bit about the commitment to get in. Obviously, I heard you say that you're looking for experienced restaurateurs, so to speak, people who are familiar with the industry. You're looking for multi-unit buy-in, right? You're not looking for onesie, twosie. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, all of our operators have to own at least 5 or more restaurants, although I'd say a good portion of our operators probably own 30 plus restaurants. So it has to kind of match the equivalent of the territory size they're going to sign on for. So our minimum franchise commitment is 5 locations. Most franchisees sign on in the 10-store range.
Okay. And for those that are looking to get into this, that have that kind of experience, what are we talking in terms of investment and, first year working capital? What are you looking for?
Yeah, so the build out cost per restaurant, your all-in investment cost can range from $588,000 to $980,000, with most of them costing in about the $850 range. So because we are looking for franchisees that can build territories in the 5 to 10 store range, we're normally looking for about $1 million in liquid assets. Because since we're a young brand, most banks are requiring that our franchisees need to fully fund the first location, and then they can normally get lending on the second location going forward.
Okay. And let me ask you, what do you think? I mean, obviously the chicken industry, you're going into a pretty full, there's a lot of different options out there, right? For somebody looking for chicken. What makes Dave's the one? What makes Dave's the chosen brand, not only for somebody looking to enter into that particular category, but what about even for somebody looking to go and eat? What makes Dave's so
Yeah,
special?
absolutely. Well, I think as everybody, in the restaurant industry has known that chicken has been a hot category for some time. And as an American, chicken is a staple food product. And so that's why, Chick-fil-A and Raising Cane's and, a lot of the chicken competitors are on every corner because, and they're packed, So chicken is just kind of a mainstream, food product. Dave's is very differentiated between the Chick-fil-A's and the Raising Cane's and the KFC's and everything else because it's got the Nashville hot flavor. And the younger demographic is really drawn to the spicy flavor profiles. They're drawn to concepts that are really hot on social media, which we are. And so it really is just this very craveable and bold flavor profile. And then you also see that we kind of hit this opportunity right at a time that Nashville hot in particular was becoming very popular. It all of a sudden started getting introduced on multiple different menus where they were trying a Nashville hot style flavor. So at this point, we're really the only true national player in the Nashville hot space. It's very popular, but most of them are owned by more mom and pop or one-off locations. So we really are poised to be the major national player in this segment.
Okay, excellent. And so we always ask people, and obviously your information will be all over our website, but if somebody wants to get in touch with you or is interested in Dave's Hot Chicken, how can they go about getting a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So if they just go to our website at daveshotchicken.com, there's a section on our website to inquire about franchise information. It's a very brief form that they can fill out, and then I get back with them within 24 hours.
Awesome. You are one busy lady.
Yes.
I appreciate your
fun.
time.
I like to be busy.
Yeah, well, I don't know how you do it. And we know you have children as well. And now you have a new dog. And so I can't imagine how you get it all done, but in 24 hours, I think that's fabulous. Congratulations on your great success. I'm excited to see where Dave's Hot Chicken goes, especially with all of your stuff going internationally. Shannon Swenson with Dave's Hot Chicken out of Texas. Thank you again so very much for joining us. And we'll look forward to catching up with you again in the next 6 to 12 months to find out where you've gone.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, franchise owners. How's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvine, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvine.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvine.com.
Sherry.
Kristin, so great to see you again.
And you as well. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I could stand a little warmer weather, right? I'm sure you're feeling the effects there.
Yeah, it was 10 degrees this morning. And you know, as Ray always likes to do, especially when he's away, he knows how much I hate the cold weather. He sent me a nice photo of him and Daisy, but only their feet, so I could see the sand and the beach and the palm trees.
That's just all sorts of wrong, isn't it?
He's such a pal. Yeah.
Well, we had a great guest on, didn't we? Shannon,
oh my God.
That's an amazing concept.
It really is. And, you know, I can just totally envision these guys out there on their first night making this chicken, and then, you know, to have Eater LA come out and start Instagramming it. I mean, that's just kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to call it old school, but it's really, there's another word for it, that kind of guerrilla marketing almost, only it's the new way because it's all social media, right?
Well, and they know their demographics. And so you've got the hot